In this video today, we're talking about the 4 main points that you need to know about or you need to research before buying a property in Spain. Hello everyone, this is Peter from Franke de la Fuente, a law firm with activities and offices across Costa del Sol and also a presence in the Canary Islands. And our law firm is heavily focused on international investments, real estate investments primarily, taxes, relocation to Spain, etc. So of course, in the core of what we do is to assist clients with a purchase of a property. Now, there are many purchase process guides out there, and there are certain new technology that provides clients and others with a rough idea of how it works to buy a property in Spain, and especially in Andalucía where we are. But we want to do it a little bit differently. So the purchase process is very rarely linear. It's never straightforward. Am I right, Raquel?
You're correct.
Thank you for agreeing with me. So we always face challenges, and it's never linear, as I said. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go through the purchase process step by step, but we're going to stop and actually talk about challenges that clients can face and from actual cases, from actual examples. And I already indirectly introduced Raquel here, but I can do it more officially. So together with me today is Rachel, Senior Associate with our office in Estepona. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. Let's see where it ends up. Again, I think it's more interesting, hopefully, especially for potential buyers to actually hear not only the bullet points of a purchase process guide, but actually what could I face? What kind of situations could I potentially end up with? And also a bit of information that maybe is not commonly provided as well. So let's do it from the very beginning. Let's do it from the perspective of a potential buyer. I was one of them many years ago when we bought a property here in Spain, 8 years ago now. So you're an international client, you want to buy a property in, let's say, in the Marbella or Estepona area. First of all, where do we start? Because we of course, as lawyers, we deal with the legal, technical execution, conveyancing and execution of the change of ownership, etc. But the preparations for a purchase starts, of course, before we enter the scene normally. So if I'm a client, I'm thinking about buying, I'm a potential buyer, right? I'm thinking about buying something in Andalucía. Where should I start? What's the first step, do you think?
So the first step would be having a clear overview of your needs. In order to buy a property in Spain, it's good to settle all your needs. First of all, foremost, having the budget clear.
Yeah.
So financially planning your budget in your investment in Spain is crucial for a smooth process along the way.
Yeah.
Also, your needs. Do you need it for just investment, to live here permanently, for any type of visa permit? Yeah. Are you looking into long-term or short-term renting? What is your intention with your investment in Spain? Having these needs settled from the beginning will help you have a broad image of your investment in Spain and make things easier and smoother. So yeah, the main thing is settling your needs, the budget, and also if you would like to do this alone or with a real estate agent, that will help you along the way. If so, finding a good agency or real estate agent that will match to your needs. Yeah. This is very important.
Right, so let's stop there actually. So I think we nailed it down to roughly four points. Let's the preparations, let's call it that. And of course, we as lawyers, I think we, at least as a law firm, we would like to be involved with clients as soon as possible, if possible, because as you rightly say, there's financing, There might be immigration matters to consider. There are definitely nowadays a lot of tax considerations for clients. And it could just be settled into a new life from a legal and practical point of view. So in terms then of financing, let's talk just a little bit about that. First of all, let's say I'm a non-resident, which most people will be, right? I'm an international client. I want to buy a property in Spain. Can I talk to Spanish banks?
Yes.
About mortgages?
Of course. If you either want to do it by yourself, you can, or through us. For this, an initial meeting is very important and also very good for the beginning of the transaction. So we can help you with these steps. If talking to a Spanish bank will help you to know your possibilities when wanting to obtain a mortgage. So yes, it's a good option. You can either do it by yourself or we can help you engage with the bank to see how much. Of course, it will not be a binding offer or pre-approved mortgage at that early stage of the transaction, but it will give you an idea of what you can expect in case you do need bank financing.
Yeah. Our clients, of course, come from all over the world and have different experiences. And maybe in their home country, they can have a firm offer, from the bank in an early stage.
Yes.
But here in Spain, they should be aware that we are actually talking about mainly two different kind of offers. One is a simulation of a mortgage, and the other one is a firm offer.
Correct.
So it's important for the clients to understand that, yes, I have been talking to the bank. They gave me a simulation of a mortgage, but it's not a binding offer. So they carry that with them. And it gives them, of course, some kind of confidence in making an offer for a property and moving ahead. We have so in terms of financing then, we have the Spanish banks, of course. There might be international banking possibilities as well.
Of course.
Or other kinds of financing solutions on the market. But we are mainly talking to the Spanish banks. And one very important detail, I think, when it comes to financing is, of course, the transaction costs.
Yes.
What are the transaction costs?
Well, it really will depend and vary depending on what you're looking to buy. So if you're buying a resale property, the cost will be different whether you're buying a new promotion property. Let's stick, for example, to a resale property. So in this case, you need to consider transfer tax. Okay, so you have the purchase price and then on top the transfer tax. Normally in Andalucía, 7%. Sometimes depending on the transaction, it can be reduced, special conditions, but general 7%. So you have to consider this also. Also on top, you need to consider notary costs and land registry costs, which will be at the end of the transactions, but they also need to be considered. When you're applying for a mortgage in Spain, these will be automatically done for you in the sense that the bank will take this provision of funds, so you already know, and these are expected payments at the end of the transactions, okay? We will, of course, settle them or let them know from the beginning to you so you are informed, but these are taxes you need to consider because they're on top of the purchase price.
Yeah. I think that one of the most important things to know for a buyer is that if you're going to apply for the mortgage, the banks are going to give you a percentage simulation or a firm offer on the purchase price.
Correct.
You can't loan money for the transaction costs.
Correct.
So you have to calculate that on top to see how shall I finally finance the whole purchase, right?
Correct. This is very important since the beginning of transaction because many clients do not expect these additional payments or costs. So as you say, it's crucial to have them settled and have the idea in mind since the beginning.
Yeah. And the reason that we're pointing out this carefully, of course, is that we assist a lot of clients on a monthly basis, and unfortunately, it does happen that even clients have signed a reservation contract not being aware of the transaction costs. So let's say for a resale transaction, you mentioned 7% transfer tax in Andalucía. legal fees usually around 1%, notary, land registry, etc., etc. Let's say 9-10% on
Yes,
top of the price.
On top.
But if you're not aware, and you sign the reservation contract on the purchase price, and then after you realize it's another 10% on the price, you might not have the budget
Correct.
for that. So it's very, very, very important
It's crucial
that you know the total price, total spend on your purchase, and the total mortgage you can get on that total amount.
So for this reason, we highly recommend to engage a call or a meeting with the client at the beginning of transactions, so we can also help them to see where they're at.
Yeah.
They have an idea, which is also recommended to have a previous idea of your needs. Let us know, so then we can guide you. Then we can engage with banks to see further financing, but it's super important. And if you don't have it decided yet and the transaction needs to be immediate for some reason, we can then take care through the contracts, stating necessary clauses and conditions to protect you. So you can have a margin of time to know how much financing you'll be able to obtain, or in case you didn't predict this extra cost, to see how you would be able to finance and have a little bit of more time, so you're not binded financially wise.
Yeah. Good. Let's move on. That's one thing you need to cover. I think that's the first thing.
Yes.
Budget, financing to move forward, right? With confidence. Second of all, as you mentioned before, immigration residency. So that's important also. What's my purpose with this investment, right? And so what can we say when on this point?
So if you're interested to move to Spain just for a short period of time, then you will have different tax implications, whether if you were moving to Spain for a long period of time, or if you're interested in just moving permanently to Spain with a type of visa. So this will impact how we need to plan immigration-wise your file. So it's very important, because this can also affect financing, or it can also affect a long-term need with the property you will buy. A study will be done also on this regard to protect your interests depending on your immigration needs.
Yeah. So, I mean, to put it quite simple, if you're a European citizen, pretty straightforward. You can spend your time in Spain. Of course, it's for non-European citizens. Then, and if you want to spend more than the allowed days for your citizenship, then you have to look into the available immigration options for you.
Correct.
That could be the digital nomad visa, it can be a non-lucrative visa. You could combine that with a Beckham law application for tax purposes, etc. But I think in this video, to point out, this is of course quite important, and it depends on your purpose of purchase. If you want to move to Spain, of course, we need to, and you're not a European citizen, we need to see how we can help you to achieve that. And as you rightly put, when we're also going to mention when it comes to taxes later, if you then become a tax resident, if you're going to move to Spain, you're also going to be a tax resident in Spain.
Correct.
What kind of impact do we have then? Do we have then for the client? So these two questions are usually combined. We have our own, of course, tax department, tax advisors. So it starts with a question about immigration, which many times
Moves
to a full tax study.
Correct.
To understand which are the tax implications for me.
Correct.
Very well. Immigration needs to be confirmed. What are my needs? One more thing that I think is really important, and we face this many times, is compliance and AML matters. To buy a property in Spain, you need money.
Yes.
Anywhere, I
Anywhere
suppose.
in the world, I guess.
Yes. So we've spoken already about financing, but of course, you have to use part of your own funds. So what can we say about this? What needs to be done in preparatory work in regards to compliance and AML?
So this is a question that many clients ask, and it's the topic mainly in most transactions, because some clients are not aware of all the AML compliance that needs to be done in Spain. It's totally understandable. This is why we're here to support and guide the client through the steps. If it's resale property or new development property, it needs to be done. So the file for AML, according to the law enforced in Spain, needs to be fully
What's
approved.
AML? We have to point that out to the folks back home.
Anti-money laundering process. So the anti-money laundering process is something that, of course, needs to be done. We need to comply with regulations. Spain is brilliant in the sense we have exquisite requirements to comply. And we do guide the clients to be able to fulfill them in an early stage and get it done. So we guide them in the sense that we let them know what needs to be provided. If they need financing, they will need also to be approved within the bank, the AML file. But it's straightforward. Once we have all documentations, it's fine. We can make it happen and it's okay.
All right. That sounds good. Sounds lovely, actually. Yes. But we know also that sometimes it can be tricky.
It can be tricky, but we're here to support it.
Yeah, of course. No, you're right. So, but let's name a few examples. And there are many of them that can be, of course, difficult. But everything starts with the identity of the individual or the company. Who are you? First question from an AML point of view, right? To put the legislation and regulations in a very, simply. And second question is, where's the money coming from?
Yes, basically.
That's basic,
That's
right?
The main purpose.
Who are you and where's the money coming from?
Yes.
And then if the situation is simple, I have my money in Sweden or in Germany, in France, I have this employment, I provide you with my tax, last 3 years tax returns, situation is very clear, or I sold a property, it's inheritance, whatever. Quite simple. Yes. But life is not always that simple. This is a gift from my cousin. It was a transfer from Bahamas or Barbados. Or I have a couple of companies spread out throughout Europe and in Russia and in other parts of the world. We are married, but I am providing all the funds for this buy and purchase process, etc., etc., etc. Right?
Cases.
My money is held partially in Morocco and partially in Iran, and a few of it is and some of it is in Dubai, and so on. This is quite common in our line of work that we need to assist clients with quite complicated cases. Compliance situations, so to speak. So I think and of course, there are political blockades towards certain countries. Transfer of money from certain countries are just out of the question.
Yes.
But there are also sometimes difficult and complex situations which we actually can manage.
Yes.
It's not always impossible, right?
No, at all.
And what we learned, I think, from doing this on a very daily basis and also in very complicated matters is that the receiver of the compliance report, the AML report, they need a little bit of assistance and guidance. If it's really important the way we hand over the information to them, the developers on the coast, banks, anyone really. But if you prepare the file as a lawyer perfectly, and it's well indexed, so to speak, and it's well prepared, it's well explained, then of course you have a better chance of succeeding and getting those funds approved. So do you have any specific examples where it wasn't that simple?
Well, we have cases from outside of the European Union where many clients have trust, for example, in the US. And in Spain, the trust is not a legally recognized legal structure.
Yes.
It can be done. Is not a direct no. You just need to endure a further extensive AML process. And as you mentioned, have all the file in place, detailed, ready for the promoter in order to avoid misunderstandings or delays. It can be done. It's not a no, but these are the type of cases where the funds are not specifically in one account. The origin is an inheritance or a sale of a property or some sort of prize that they have won. Nothing that can be documented within one document and not traced back in many years. When it's that easy, it's fine. But when funds come from trusts or companies, share of dividends, we need to have further documents to prove this as a trust, for example. But it can be done. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Good. It's not a problem. You heard from Rachel here. Okay, let's move on then. Next thing that I think is also crucial when it comes to for the preparation, buying a property in Spain and in Andalucía, taxes. Right? We should point out that we have professional tax advisors in the company.
Yes.
But of course, we attend to clients on a daily basis, and there are some questions that always are recurrent that we deal with. So from a tax point of view, which are the most common queries and questions that you get from clients?
What are my taxes? What am I going to pay?
Yeah.
So how am I going to be taxed? This is the main question. And this will really depend on where you come from and what are your intentions within your investment. For this, we do recommend always to have a meeting with a tax department, a tax advisor, to assess your case specifically according to your background and to your intentions with the property and your financing. So yes, this is the main question. What I am going to pay? What are my taxes? So,
yeah. Okay, so to break it down, I think that you're completely right. I think that the most common questions when it comes to taxes in general, as you just pointed out, my taxes, well, and that is of course relevant when you become a tax resident in Spain. If you're not a tax resident in Spain, then there are other taxes we need to consider still. Yes. But of course, a completely different scenario, because taxes on income and dividends, etc., are not really relevant then. Well, you have the assets. If you have an asset in Spain to a certain value, then solidarity tax, even for a non-resident, will be applicable. We have the local property tax, which is not in relevant terms, it's not a high number. The non-resident tax, which is also not a significant amount. But of course, the scenario where you actually become a tax resident in Spain, that's where we can actually provide, I believe, more value to a client. Because then you really need to set the best possible structure. Exactly. And let's be honest here, this is not not rocket science. Clients are usually asking to optimize, to use a careful word, their tax situation. That's how it works. So we need to find out, of course, what's the purpose of your stay here? What's the purpose of your purchase? Or will you then become actually a tax resident in Spain? Because you have your main financial interest here, or you spend more than 183 days here, etc. And what will be the possible outcome? And see your current situation, and then holistically make an analysis. What should we do with Mr. or Mrs. Client in this regard?
Yes.
That's one thing. I think one more thing to add in this particular conversation is also for investors and companies. So of course we are assisting a lot of investors and clients that wants to buy a property or properties through a company. One of our, I think, most recurrent questions, am I right?
Yes. So many clients aim to buy a property through a company, as you mentioned, in order to optimize their investment in Spain and find the most optimal process for them. It is a question, and that is already always forwarded to us, and it's feasible. It can be done. We just need to know, of course, as I mentioned, your background, your needs, your budget, and your interest within the property. And then once we know what type of company it's suitable for your needs, how we can structure financing through the company. So many questions are always settled in an initial consultation or meeting with us, so we can help you decide. And even if you're not decided at the beginning of the transaction, we can always add this option for you, either to buy with the promoter or to buy a resale property, to make a decision once you have signed the reservation agreement or even the private purchase contract, to give you this option. So we can, in the meantime, plan accordingly your needs in case you need a bit of more time to know, to make your decision.
Yeah.
So this is an option also, is very common.
It is very common. You know, I think when you have your first phone call with or meeting with a client, it's very common that they heard something about maybe buying through a company, or they are very well prepared and they know that they want to start a legal entity for their investments. Should I buy with a company or not? That's a quite common question. And I think what we can point out here is, as you said, it's really important to know what is the purpose, what is it that you want to achieve. Is this mainly a property that you will use yourself? Then of course either you will use it as an individual, or you will be a shareholder using the property that has certain tax implications. Or is this an actual commercial activity? You want to buy, you want to invest, you want to sell, or you want to keep and you want to rent? What is the business activity that you want to carry out?
Exactly. This will also impact taxes. The
No, a lot,
apply.
right?
Correct.
So it's really important not to well, I think we can separate two main client categories. One is the, let's say, more of a maybe hobby investor, somebody that would like to combine a life in Marbella together with maybe a single investment. And then we have more the institutional investors that are only focusing on a commercial activity. And then of course, it's really important to understand what is it that they want to achieve, what kind of real estate product is it that they want to be engaged in, and of course, what is the ownership structure of that full, complete entity? Because there are always shareholders and individuals behind companies. And of course, we have to see, first of all, how will the tax situation be for the company? But also, what is the final tax impact when you want to have those money in your pocket?
Yes.
Money in your pocket. So, financing, immigration, AML, taxes. So if we have those 4 points covered, and I have learned now, being engaged a little bit online with Instagram and LinkedIn, etc., you should always talk about points. Point number 1, 2, and 3, and 4, I believe. In this case, we have 4 points. So the 4 points are financing, AML, immigration, and taxes. Do your research and preparation on those 4 points, and please contact us.
Call us
as soon as possible when you're in your doing your preparations, because we believe we can help you.
Yes.
Then you're much better armed for your investment process.
It has an impact in how smooth it will go forward.
Absolutely. All right. Let's finish off on that point. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.